The Osborne Internet-linked Encyclopedia of the Ancient World, pages 42 through 52. Ancient Egypt. Discovering Ancient Egypt. The ancient Egyptian civilization began to wane in 30 BC when Egypt became part of the Roman Empire. Christianity took over, and the treasures that lay buried in the desert were gradually forgotten. Then, about 200 years ago, European explorers started taking an interest in the ancient sites. For some, this soon became an obsession. Early records. The ancient Egyptians wrote a lot down, but they wrote to glorify their gods and king, not to create current records. So they deliberately left some things out and exaggerated others. The first real history of Egypt was written by a Greek named Herodotus, who is sometimes known as the father of history. He visited Egypt in around 500 BC. His account was mainly based on what people told him, so some of it was myth rather than fact. Later, in the Ptolemaic period, Ptolemy II paid an Egyptian scribe named Manetho to write a history of Egypt. Manetho divided it into 30 dynasties or groups of kings, a system we still use today. The vital clue. For European explorers in the 18th century, it was difficult to make sense of the ancient monuments. They couldn't tell who had built them, when, or why, because they couldn't read hieroglyphs, the Egyptian picture writing. Then in 1798, Britain and France went to war, fought in Egypt. Napoleon, the French general, took a big team of scholars with him to study the monuments. But it was his soldiers who made the most important discovery, a slab of black stone near the Mediterranean Sea at a place called Rosetta. It had 3 different scripts on it, 1 Greek, 2 Egyptian, and the French scholars guessed that the texts were translations of each other. Could this be the key to the mysterious hieroglyphs? The birth of Egyptology. The Rosetta Stone, as it became known, did indeed make it possible to decipher hieroglyphs. Most of the work was done by a Frenchman, Jean-François Champollion, and an Englishman, Thomas Young. Once people could read hieroglyphs, interest in ancient Egypt shot up, and a new academic subject was created: Egyptology. Belzoni the Giant. Excitement about Egypt's measures lead to what we now think of as reckless plundering. Adventurers thought it fine to ransack tombs and temples, taking whatever they fancied. One was ex-circus strongman Giovanni Belzoni, who was over 6 foot 7 inches tall. He cleared the sand from the big temples at Abu Simbel and opened many of the tombs in the Valley of the Kings. In his enthusiasm, he caused a lot of damage, but he was probably no worse than other adventurers of his time. Augusta Mariette. By the mid-19th century, Egypt was attracting more and more enthusiasts. One was a Frenchman named Auguste Mariette. Without permission from the authorities, he began to dig at Saqqara, and soon found a huge underground tomb that became known as the Serapeum. This was the start of Mariette's great career as the Egyptologist. As well as carrying out many excavations, he set up the Egypt Museum in Cairo. This meant that most new discoveries stayed in Egypt, where they belonged, rather than being shipped out to European countries. The man in pink underwear. Mariette was not as reckless as Belzoni, but even so, careful methods of excavation were only developed later in the 19th century. This was thanks to the eccentric Englishman William Flinders Petrie. He often worked in just his long pink underwear to stay cool. Petrie created a very detailed and disciplined way of working. He saw that as much could be learned from small objects and fragments of pottery as from big monuments. He recorded everything he found, and by comparing thousands of pots with each other, he began to sort out the mystery surrounding Egypt's earliest history. Treasure trove. By the early 20th century, many Egyptologists have followed in Belzoni's path, hunting for mummies and treasures in the Valley of the Kings. All of the tombs they found had been robbed in ancient times, and almost everyone was convinced that there was nothing left to discover. But one man didn't agree: the missing tomb. Egyptologists had established which kings had been buried in the valleys of the kings. All the important ones have been found, but one was still missing, a boy, King Tut. The British Egyptologist named Howard Carter was determined to find him. In 1917 he started a hunt, funded by a wealthy man, Lord Carnarvon. For 4 years he found nothing, and the Egypt authorities thought it was time he gave up. But Carter begged for one more year. Eventually they agreed. Wonderful things. The hunt restarted in November of 1922, and Carter decided to move some ancient workmen's huts. And almost as soon as work began, some steps appeared, leading down to a tomb. Could it be success at last? Very excited, Carter sent Lord Carnarvon a telegram saying, "At last have made wonderful discovery in the valley. A magnificent tomb with seals intact. Recovered same for your arrival. Congratulations." On November 25th, 1922, Lord Carnarvon stood waiting while Howard Carter carefully made a hole in the blocked-up door. Looked inside impatiently. Lord Carnarvon asked, "Can you see anything?" And Howard Carter replied, "Yes, wonderful things." A test of patience. The first room was full of objects heaped together, such as chariots, statues, chairs, and chests. At one end, another sealed door with two statues guarding it. Could the mummy of the king lie behind it? Even though everyone was dying to know, Carter was patient. First, he cleared the first room, taking detailed records of everything. At last, in February of 1923, he opened the second door. What he found inside was breathtaking. 4 wooden shrines covered in gold, surrounding a solid stone sarcophagus. Beyond was yet another room packed with more amazing objects, but Carter continued to be incredibly patient. It was another 3 years before they opened the sarcophagus to find 3 coffins nestled inside each other. The first 2 were made of gilded wood, but the third was solid gold, inlaid with precious stones. Inside lay a mummy, its face covered with a beautiful gold mask that is now recognized all over the world. The Mummy's Curse. Not long after the discovery of the tomb, Lord Carnarvon developed pneumonia. He died in Cairo on April 5th of 1923. Sadly, this meant that he never saw Tut's stunning gold coffin or mask because the sarcophagus had yet to be opened. Some newspaper reporters suggested that he had died under a curse, which doomed anyone who disturbed the mummy. People wanted to believe the story, so it spread quickly, but most people who had contact with the mummy, including Carter himself, came to no harm at all. Records and conservation. Egyptology isn't just about finding new things. Many tombs, buildings, and objects have been found that risk being lost forever unless they are recorded and preserved properly. The work can range from making an intricate copy of a small carving to actually moving whole buildings. Many Egyptologists now believe that this is much more urgent than carrying out new excavations. Modern disciplines. As well as excavators, the world of Egyptology includes people who specialize in examining, reconstructing, and recording objects such as pots, coffins, or ancient writings; mappers, who make plans of ancient sites; restorers, who specialize in preserving fragile paintings or objects; photographers, who provide clear and accurate records; and scientists of many kinds who use modern technology to examine and date objects. Saved from beetles. Making records may not seem as exciting as excavating, but if more of the early explorers had recorded their findings properly, many of the remaining mysteries might have been solved. Even early in the 19th century, though, some records were made. David Roberts, a Scottish painter, made a series of careful oil paintings, and a German named Karl Lepsius carried out a survey of all the major sites. Not all conservation takes place in Egypt. In 1976, the Egyptian authorities sent a major exhibit of antiquities to Paris. The key exhibit was the mummy of Ramesses II, which was given its own special passport to enter France. When it was discovered that Ramesses was being attacked by beetles, French scientists offered to help, and the king was treated successfully. Desert rescue. In the 1960s, one of the world's greatest ever conservation projects took place in Nubia, southern Egypt, to control the Nile's water so crops could be grown all year. A big dam was built, creating a huge reservoir that would have flooded all the ancient cities in the area, including the temples of Abu Simbel. The Egyptian government wanted to rescue as much as possible, but the only solution for the temples was to move them. This was too expensive for one government, so United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization helped. The amazing task began in 1964. Over 4 years, the temples were cut into blocks and moved 197 feet up the cliff face out of the way of the water. The job goes on. Preserving ancient Egyptian sites is a difficult job. Ones that are open to tourists can easily be damaged by the moisture in people's breath, for example, and there's often isn't enough time or money to preserve the many others. But a great deal of work is still done by the Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities and by Egyptologists from around the world. Egyptology today. Egyptologists are as busy as ever. They don't expect to find another tomb like Tut's, but they are always finding vital new information about life in ancient Egypt. As technology develops, new interpretations of the facts become possible too. What's going on? The Egyptologist season is generally from autumn to spring when it's not too hot. Then, Egyptologists of many nationalities work on all sorts of projects. A good way to find out about them is on the internet. Many do not set out to find new treasures, but to record existing discoveries or to develop a new theory about why things happened and the way they did. Much of the work that goes on it's restoration work. A recent successful restoration project has been that of the beautiful tomb of Nefertari on the west bank of Luxor, which was being damaged by the salty water rising up beneath it. Modern technology. Advances in technology have made a big difference to the analysis of Egyptologists' finds. CAT scanners allow them to look at mummies without damaging them. And DNA testing tells us a lot about how people were related or what diseases they had. Computers helped Egyptologists to piece together what ruined buildings must have looked like, even when they only have fragments to work with. A donkey's discovery. One day in 1997, out in the western desert at a place called Bawati, a donkey trapped his leg in a hole in the ground and fell. His rider realized that the hole might be important, and in March of 1999, a major excavation began. The finds have been astonishing. A vast tomb complex containing hundreds of mummies. This is known as the Valley of the Golden Mummies. The mummies are mostly in very good condition and are dated from the Greek period onwards. Some are in coffins, while others are simply wrapped in linen. Many are richly decorated with gold and other metals. Under the waves. Modern sonar and diving equipment open up many possibilities for underwater excavation. Divers working in the Bay of Aboukir near Alexandria have made some exciting discoveries in the past few years, including a palace that may have belonged to Cleopatra VII herself. Then in June 2000, two sunken cities called Heraklion and Canopus were found. Work continues to uncover the bay's secrets from underneath many thick layers of silt. Ongoing work. There are some of the most significant discoveries and projects that have happened in Egypt in recent years. Much of the work is still going on. Pyramid workers, bakeries, and temples have been found at Giza. Some of the earliest writings in the world have been found at Abydos, and also some First Dynasty ships. Another tomb, KV5, has been rediscovered in the Valley of the Kings. The ancient city of Memphis is gradually being excavated. A workmen's village has been uncovered at Tel el Armana, Akhenaten's capital city. A hunt is ongoing in the Valley of the Kings for members of Akhenaten's family. Hatshepsut's temple at Deir el Bahri is gradually being pieced back together.